Hey everyone, I'm Nico from Licks of the Beast, and today we're going to take a close look at the riffs of Peace of Mind. Peace of Mind was the album that set the standard for the Iron Maiden sound as we know it. On the first three albums, Maiden sounded like a unique blend of their influences. They were a heavy rock band with the energy of punk rock, the dual guitar harmonies of bands like Thin Lizzy and Wishbone Ash, and the adventurous songwriting of 70s prog rock. However, they didn't quite have their own sound just yet. Peace of Mind is when they really started to sound like Iron Maiden. This was due to a number of things converging. It was their fourth album, so their sound had time to mature and develop. They were growing as songwriters. They were surely able to spend more time and more money on the production. And of course, let's not forget the arrival of the larger-than-life Nico McBrain on drums. It's also an album that features a lot of heavy riffs that are quite simple and straightforward, but with a very distinctive sound that I feel has truly stood the test of time. So, without further ado, let's look at some of the great riffs of Peace of Mind. The album starts with a hard-hitting Where Eagles There, which has one of my absolute favorite Iron Maiden riffs. So this is a simple 1-7-6 progression with a low E pedal and a neat little tail at the end. What really stands out to me is the deliberate pace and rhythm of the riff. It doesn't have that bouncy quality that many of the riffs of the first three albums had. I'm thinking of riffs like or so this one is driving, steady, and each chord is marked with a strong accent. So I feel like starting an album like this was making a statement that, hey, this is Iron Maiden, and you better take notice. There are many more great riffs just within this one song, but I don't want this video to get too long, so I'll try to limit this to one riff per track. The second song is Revelations. The main riff follows pretty much the same chord progression as Where Eagles There. This one is 1-6-7. What's interesting is, for how simple and common it is, if I play this riff to any metal fan, they'll know it's Revelations. What really makes this riff is the special combination of the groove, the timing, the little string mutes, and that bluesy quarter step bend on the final G that reinforces the walk back to the tonic. Flight of Icarus doesn't have a real main riff, so we'll move on to Die With Your Boots On, which has two really cool harmonized riffs. So the song starts with a real blues rock riff based on the E minor pentatonic scale. Adrian is playing the main notes E, D, and G. And Dave is harmonizing a third higher, playing the notes G, F sharp, and B. And this is how they sound together. There's another cool riff in this song right after Dave's solo. It's this riff right here. So first of all, the whole solo section is in the key of A minor, so we're now in a different key from where we started. This riff is based on the natural minor scale, and once again, Adrian is playing the main part, with Dave adding in a harmony just before the vocals come in. Now your typical Iron Maiden harmony would be in parallel thirds, so the notes would be like this. Now while that still sounds pretty cool, it isn't really ideal for this part, because it makes it feel more closed and stuffy instead of broad and open. So in order to let the part breathe, Dave does two really cool things. First of all, he moves it up an octave, so instead of playing these notes here, he's playing up here instead. Then he doesn't harmonize it in thirds, but fourths and fifths. This makes the harmony similar enough to the main part, but different enough to keep things fresh and interesting. Next up is a song with one of the most recognizable intros of all time. For me, the opening riff of The Trooper is right up there with intros like Master of Puppets, Sweet Child of Mine, and Crazy Train. It's unmistakable and anyone will recognize it from literally the first second. What's crazy to me is that this is such a simple and even obvious riff, yet like Revelations, it's unmistakably Iron Maiden. The riff is in E Aeolian, and it follows this symmetrical pattern of two successive notes, then skip a note. It moves down the scale diatonically, so the first repetition of the pattern starts on E, the second on D, and the third on C. They play this riff in unison on the first half, and then Dave plays a harmony in parallel thirds on the second half. And note that the tail is not harmonized. I've seen a lot of people do it kind of like this. And while it's totally cool if you want to play it that way, but just for the sake of analyzing the original, there's no harmony on the tail. And if you're not sure about that, the isolated lead guitar track can easily be found right here on YouTube, so you can check it out, listen to Dave's guitar on the left side, you'll notice no harmony on the tail. But anyway, having the harmony come in on the second half of the intro is a great way to really build up the anticipation for what's to come. They use the same technique on the song Iron Maiden to similar effect. From Still Life, I want to talk about this interlude riff right here. So it's a two-part question and answer riff. The first question uses the chords C, D, E, and F, followed by this little tail here in F major. The second is just the chords A and G. So the whole riff has forward momentum due to the ascending chords, and then it's followed by the same tail they use in the chorus. And that's smart because it gives the song a break, all while keeping a sense of continuity. Quest for Fire has a really cool intro riff made up of ascending and descending chords that cover the entire natural minor scale. It goes like this. This is a very dramatic intro that has a cinematic quality to it, which is exactly what you want in a song based on a movie. This is the same kind of bombastic, dramatic riff that they used as recently as their last album, on the epic track The Red and the Black. Sun and Steel is next, and it's got a really mean sounding main riff. So this is a great example of how to tweak a riff to make it stand out more. So there are two things I want to highlight. First of all, by playing the first three chords as dyads and letting the bass play the root, the riff gains clarity. If they had played this as straight power chords like this, the sound would be a bit muddy and the riff wouldn't have quite the same impact. So removing the root note cleans it up and gives it a more crisp sound. The second thing is the accented A chord. Because they keep going to this chord, they had to do something to make it interesting. So playing it as a 2-octave power chords, with the high A really standing out, it's brilliant because it's a simple but effective way of making it more dynamic and more memorable. The album closes with a very epic and dreamy Tatama Land. The main riff is a little different here, as the main theme is actually played by the bass. The guitars are playing this much more simple pattern. Now if the guitar were to double that bass line, something like this, or like, it would have been a bit too busy and thus much less impactful. By letting the bass take the lead, the guitars create a sonic landscape in the background, making the whole thing more atmospheric and again much more memorable. In conclusion, I want to give a quick honorable mention to some really great riffs that you don't ever really hear on their own. And those are the chorus riffs to Where Eagles Dare, Flight of Icarus, Die With Your Boots On, and Quest for Fire. So here they are really quick. So that's it for this week. I hope that you enjoyed the video and that maybe it'll give you a little more insight into this classic album. I'm sure there's plenty more to be said, so please do feel free to continue the conversation in the comments section. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as these things really do help a lot. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for more licks of the beast.